It's November 27th here in Seoul, and I'm condemned. We begin with the stories making headlines at this hour, starting with the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire deal. Israel has agreed to a ceasefire to stop the fighting with the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the pause is to focus on the Iranian threat and to increase pressure on Hamas in Gaza. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's team is considering arranging direct talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, according to sources familiar with the matter, though nothing has been set in stone or decided by the president-elect. The season's first snow fell in Seoul and the metropolitan area overnight. The entire nation will see snow or rain through Thursday morning. Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a ceasefire to end nearly 14 months of fighting. Now, the truce will be in effect as of 4 a.m. Wednesday local time. Our Lee Seung-ja starts us off.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday announced that a U.S. and France-led ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah has been reached. The 60-day ceasefire, which begins on Wednesday, could also lead to permanent cessation of hostilities.
I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end.
As part of the ceasefire deal, Israel will carry out a phased withdrawal of its troops from southern Lebanon during the 60-day ceasefire period, and Lebanese government forces will take back control of the area currently held by Hezbollah. In response, Hezbollah fighters and weapons will be removed from the area south of the Litani River. The area is a boundary formed at the end of the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that if Hezbollah violates the ceasefire agreement, Israeli forces will strike right away. Israel conducted intensive airstrikes in Beirut up until the ceasefire deal was agreed upon by Prime Minister Netanyahu. According to AFP and Reuters, the Israeli military issued an evacuation warning in Beirut and conducted airstrikes on Tuesday afternoon. Around 20 airstrikes were carried out on the outskirts of Beirut. The Israeli military said it had targeted approximately 30 Hezbollah rocket launchers, weapons storage facilities, and command centers. The 60-day ceasefire temporarily pauses what's been Lebanon's deadliest conflict in decades. Local officials say nearly 4,000 people have been killed since October last year. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
So now that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah had been agreed, can the much-needed peace deal between the two be sustained? We're joined by Professor Robert Lawrence. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. What is the ceasefire deal that we are talking about here? Does it mean a complete pause to the war, like it's going to end the fighting permanently?
Right. Well, under the ceasefire, which is set to begin in about an hour, there will be a 60-day period in which Israeli forces will have a phased withdrawal from southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah forces and their weapons will leave the area between the Blue Line and the Litani River. So the Lebanese military and security forces will deploy to that region in between the Litani and the Blue Line. And as they reach the Blue Line, which is the unofficial demarcation between Lebanon and Israel, Israeli forces will completely withdraw. Lebanese forces, along with UNIFIL forces, will patrol the region and ensure that no Hezbollah forces or infrastructure weaponry remain, and that none will be permitted to rebuild. The deal is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities, but of course, this will depend on the parties involved adhering to the actual agreement itself.
So it sounds like the next 60 days will be a crucial period for both sides. Now, the Israeli Security Cabinet voted to approve a ceasefire deal in Lebanon, but Professor Lawrence, what do you think ultimately convinced Netanyahu to agree to the deal eventually?
I think it was probably a combination of variables. Firstly, Israel's dealt pretty decisive blows to Hezbollah's leadership, infrastructure, weapon supplies, and ground troops. And Israeli ground troops have actually reached the Litani River now for the first time since 2000. So they've accomplished a number of military goals, and there are also reports that Iran was pressuring Hezbollah to find a deal. So, when we take this, it essentially, the ceasefire will take Hezbollah off the table and allow Israel to focus more on Hamas, which of course leaves Hamas more isolated itself. So strategically, it's a sound move. Secondly, you can assume that the Biden administration has increased its pressure on the Israeli government. Though it's tough to ascertain what those sticks were, but even the more hardline members of Netanyahu's cabinet have toned down their opposition. So it would indicate that it's no longer in their interest to fight the pressure. And lastly, according to the Wall Street Journal, Ron Dermer, who's the strategic affairs minister, met with President-elect Trump in Florida a couple of weeks ago, where Trump greenlit the proposal and said he hoped that it would be implemented before he came into office. So when you combine these things, it's the right time to shift back towards Gaza.
Sounds like it. Now, Israeli forces pushed ahead with more airstrikes on Beirut right before the ceasefire deal was sealed. Is this some sort of a warning to Hezbollah?
Well, there's been a great deal of kinetic military engagement between the two in the last couple of days. Hezbollah fired about 250 rockets the other day, and then, and like you said, as Israel's cabinet was voting on the ceasefire, Israel launched attacks on 20 locations in, I think, under 2 minutes. They targeted defense units, intelligence and command centers, storage facilities, and even the financial headquarters, which is very significant. So, why? Simply put, the ceasefire deal hadn't started yet. So, until 4 a.m. local time, which is about an hour, both sides are actively engaged, and it's not, out of bounds for either side to continue the fight. I don't feel like there was a specific warning being sent. I think they've been doing that for months. Everybody knows each other's capabilities at this point. I think rather they're trying to hit specific targets before the clock runs out.
Well, what Netanyahu is warning is that if Hezbollah violates the agreement, Israel will strike immediately. The question is, though, how likely is it that Hezbollah will, break the deal?
Yeah. Both Netanyahu and Biden have explicitly said that Israel will retain the right to defend itself and act if under threat. And I don't believe that anyone has a desire to see a repeat of the failed implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 from 2006. So, multinational forces are going to be observing and trying to prevent anything that would violate the ceasefire. As far as, Hezbollah breaking the deal, right now, I think, even though it's always difficult to predict, but I think it seems like Hezbollah will probably lay low and focus on domestic concerns. Reports indicated that Iran wanted Hezbollah to accept that deal, and it needs to focus on its position in Lebanese politics right now. There's bound to be a rush for supremacy in the internal politics of Lebanon as they recover and rebuild from this conflict.
Right.
And plenty of groups would like to push Hezbollah out of the center of Lebanese politics. So I think it probably makes the most sense for them to focus on political ambitions right now.
Well, in a nutshell, the deal was proposed by the U.S., which I'm sure the Biden administration will take credit for. How will the incoming Trump administration see the deal? Will it be relieved that it won't have to deal with it?
Well, I think it will. I do think the Biden administration will claim this as a foreign policy victory, and I think they'll probably take this momentum and rush towards trying to get something done in Gaza. I would imagine that's going to start immediately. As far as Trump's concerned, Amos Hochstein, mentioned from the beginning that he was working in tandem with the incoming and outgoing administrations. And despite all the vitriol of the recent elections, there's actually been a concerted effort for both administrations to work together. And on top of that, like I mentioned earlier, Israeli government officials have already talked to Trump about it, and he's made his stance pretty clear. So I think he welcomes this news.
All righty, Professor Lawrence, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. You have a good day.
You too. In other news, the incoming Trump administration is reportedly considering direct talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, more than 5 years after stalled talks between Washington and Pyongyang. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's team is considering re-engaging with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which may lead to a diplomatic and political shift on the Korean peninsula. Reuters reported on Tuesday local time that two people familiar with the matter said that Trump's team is weighing the possibility of direct talks with Kim in the hope of lowering the risk of armed conflict. This comes as Trump appointed Alex Wong, who played a key role in his Singapore and Hanoi summits with Kim, as Deputy National Security Advisor, heightening speculation about a renewed interest in pursuing dialogue with North Korea. Trump met with the North Korean leader a total of 3 times during his first term, at the summit in Singapore in 2018, Hanoi in February 2019, and then a third impromptu meeting at the DMZ a couple months later on June 2019. The U.S. president-elect also hinted at his interest in talks between the U.S. and North Korea in his speech at the Republican National Convention in July, saying that he will get along with Kim if he takes office again. But there are still major hurdles to overcome before a U.S.-North Korea summit takes place. It's unclear whether North Korea would be willing to re-engage with Trump after 4 years of no direct dialogue between the North and the Biden administration, with Kim instead focusing on advancing North Korea's missile capabilities and relations with Russia. There are also more pressing foreign matters such as the war in Ukraine and the Middle East, as well as domestic issues that Trump has vowed to address from his first day in office. But with his team considering talks with North Korea during the transition period, a summit with Kim may be sought soon after the inauguration on January 20. If such a summit takes place, it would be crucial for South Korea to be included in order for security interests in the region to not be undermined, especially in regard to denuclearization. 이수진, Arirang News.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's team has indicated that the new administration may review subsidies paid to companies under the Chips and Science Act. Vivek Ramaswamy, who will lead the Department of Commerce Efficiency, alongside Tesla CEO Elon Musk, took to X on Tuesday to slam the Biden administration's push to deliver $50 billion in subsidies before the new administration comes into office. Calling it very inappropriate, Ramaswamy hinted at the new Trump administration possibly reconsidering these subsidies. South Korea's Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix have been selected by the Commerce Department to receive subsidies, but neither company has received payments yet. Amid ongoing tensions between Seoul and Tokyo over the memorial service for victims of wartime forced labor, the two countries' top diplomats met briefly on the sidelines of the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Italy. South Korea's foreign minister Do Tae-yeol and his Japanese counterpart Takeshi Iwaya agreed not to let the issue affect bilateral relations or the positive momentum of cooperation between the two countries. Their meeting comes after South Koreans refused to attend the memorial event held on Sunday organized by Japan to pay tribute to those forced to work in the Sado mines, saying it had been impossible to settle disagreements between the two governments. The former gold mines on Sado Island off Japan's west coast have long been at the center of historical disputes between the two countries, as they are where more than 1,500 Koreans were forced into harsh labor during Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. Regional wind energy talks are in full swing in the city of Incheon for 3 days here in South Korea. To promote this particular energy and address potential challenges, our Shin Ha-young has the details.
Amid global efforts to triple renewable energy capacity by the year 2030, the Asia-Pacific region is drawing significant global attention in terms of its wind energy. According to the Global Wind Energy Council, the APAC region is expected to account for over 60% of new wind capacity worldwide between 2024 and 2030. South Korea is seen as a country that can lead APEC's wind energy growth by leveraging its supply chain strengths and advancing industry-friendly policies to meet its 14.3 gigawatts offshore wind goal by 2030.
There's not many places in the world where we can look and see the technical expertise, the industrial capacity that we see in Korea, and really a potential not just to supply the Korean industry, but to supply projects all around the world.
The remarks came during an opening ceremony of the APAC Wind Energy Summit 2024. Following the recent COP29 summit, wind industry leaders and government officials from 13 countries gathered in Incheon, South Korea to discuss challenges in wind energy sector and ways to accelerate its growth.
2024 is a milestone year for wind energy in South Korea, with February 27th designated as Korea Wind Energy Day, and the government announcing a 100 trillion won offshore wind expansion plan.
The key sessions during the summit dealt with investment within the industry as well as offshore wind supply chain issues.
I think the key takeaway for me is that we need to do more as a region to collaborate, to reconcile with the fact that carbon emissions doesn't care about border, and we shouldn't care either.
Project development can take a long time due to lengthy permits and complex regulations, creating uncertainty about investment scale and timing. South Korea is no exception. Legislation to address these issues is under discussion in the National Assembly to drive growth in the wind industry.
The best advice that we can give, in particularly where an environment where as countries we compete for the same resources, and as an industry we compete with other resources again for the key minerals, for the key materials that go into it, that we ensure that we have a barrier that is as attractive as possible, allowing corporates and developers to have a pathway to profitability.
Jens Orfeld, the regional president for RWE Offshore Wind in Asia Pacific, added that despite concerns over a potential slowdown in U.S. renewable deployment ahead of Trump's second term, it could create opportunities for Asia, including South Korea, to strengthen the energy transition. 신하영, Arirang News.
In a world dominated by short-form content, more young people are turning to poetry for its concise emotional impact. This growing interest is making waves in the local publishing scene, with poetry book sales soaring among younger readers. Han Daeun has more.
This is a poetry club at a cyber university. Each month, members write and present their own poems in person, exchanging feedback with professors and fellow club members. While poetry was once primarily enjoyed by the older members of society, the interest has now shifted, with younger generations getting more involved.
People today often find it challenging to engage with lengthy texts, so there is growing interest in poetry that delivers humor and insight in a concise format.
Rising interest in poetry among young people is also having an impact on the local publishing industry. One of Korea's largest bookstore chains, Kyobo Book Center, saw sales of poetry books jump by 18% in the first half of this year from last year, with readers in their 20s and 30s leading the trend. Yes24, another major retailer, reported a staggering 122% increase in the proportion of poetry book sales to teenagers during the same period. A newly launched phone service that recites poems attracted nearly 300,000 calls from young poetry enthusiasts.
Unlike novels, poetry lets people hear the entire piece without losing any context, which I believe is a key reason behind the phone service's popularity.
Experts say that poetry has distinct qualities that appeal to young people accustomed to short-form videos and eager to express themselves in unique ways.
I believe young people are especially drawn to poetry because it contains the emotions, imagery, and symbolic expressions that resonate with their preferences, while also providing a way for them to express themselves.
But if poetry is consumed merely for its brief and unique emotional appeal, this trend is unlikely to last. The publishing industry and scholars hope that young people's love for poetry will pave the way for a literary foundation where quality poetry is properly recognized and appreciated. Han Daeun, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Seong. Good morning, Seong.
Good morning, Dami.
Why don't we begin with the Group of 7 foreign ministers meeting over in Italy?
Yes, the diplomatic representatives of the G7 countries and the European Union released a joint statement at the end of the two-day meeting on Tuesday, where geopolitical issues took priority. Now, the statement condemned Russia for its war of aggression against Ukraine, while promising continued support for Ukraine. Foreign ministers of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the US, as well as the EU's representative, began the joint statement with a strong condemnation of Russia's actions, including its irresponsible and threatening nuclear rhetoric. The statement also called North Korea's deployment of troops to Russia a serious concern, marking a dangerous expansion of the conflict. It added that North Korea's allies, including China, should uphold international law and oppose the action. The statement also welcomed efforts to secure a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah and highlighted the need to ensure sufficient aid reaches Gaza. In Pakistan, security forces launched a midnight raid on thousands of protesters who breached a lockdown in the capital, Islamabad, demanding the release of the country's imprisoned former Prime Minister, Imran Khan. According to local media, hundreds were arrested in chaotic scenes in the early hours of Wednesday. Supporters of Imran Khan's PTI party, led by his wife, Bushra Bibi, clashed with Pakistan's security forces earlier on Tuesday, with reports that at least 6 people died in the violence. Now, the imprisoned former PM urged them to fight till the end. Protesters broke through several lines of security towards the heavily guarded red zone in the city's center, which houses the country's parliament and other key offices. Now, Khan's PTI party said it planned to stage a sit-in protest in the red zone until Khan's release. Imran Khan has been in prison since August last year, but remains popular in Pakistan. The very best from the world of television, initially from outside the US, including actors and TV shows, were honored at the 52nd International Emmy Awards in New York City on Monday. Thailand's Chutimon Chengcharoen-Sukying, nicknamed Aukbab, was named Best Actress for her role in Hunger, while British actor Timothy Spall won Best Performance for his role in the true crime series The Sixth Commandment. French-Japanese drama series Drops of God won Best Drama Series, while Argentina's División Palermo was crowned for comedy. Now, the Founders Award, given for contribution to the quality of international television production, was handed to veteran TV writer and producer David E. Kelly. The world's oldest man, John Tinniswood, has died aged 112, according to the Guinness World Records on Tuesday. Tinniswood, born in 1912 in Liverpool, England, passed away at a care home in Southport, surrounded by music and love, in the arms of his loved ones on Monday, according to a statement by his family. Born in the same year the Titanic sank, Tinniswood survived 2 world wars and global pandemics and worked as an accountant before retiring at 60. Now, his favorite dish was fish and chips, and he followed no special diet. The Guinness records say staying mentally active may have contributed to his longevity.
At the age of 111 years.
It's winter all of a sudden with snow and cold. A nightmare morning for commuters, especially those of us in the central regions. The capital area has been seeing heavier snowfall of 3 to 4 centimeters an hour. While the season's first snow in the capital came 6 days later than usual, but started with heavy snow alerts. Snow alerts have been issued across the central regions in Jeollabuk-do and Gyeongsang-Buk-do provinces. A wind advisory also remains in place for coastal regions and Jeju Island. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do could see massive snowfall of up to 30 centimeters, while there will be up to 20 centimeters in Gyeonggi-do. Seoul could also receive 3 to 10 centimeters of snow until tomorrow. Now, temperatures have dropped significantly, with highs in Seoul only topping out at 2 degrees Celsius. Daegu make it to 8 degrees. Please walk and drive with care today. But wintry conditions continue for the remainder of the week with sub-zero morning temperatures, so please stay safe. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching and stay safe wherever you are.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions at work. Choose the most appropriate form. Neng, nep, nenep. Remember that the formal ne can sound a bit stiff. Did you just say yes? Absolutely not acceptable. You want to find the right word for the right occasion. Step 3. Desteria. Desteria is the oasis in the desert. Show them your character. If you're not the diligent type, get a stooky plant. Work is tough. Laugh and the whole world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. Stay put, like the stooky that survives in the desert. Hang in there until the end. Of course, you can always quit. You matter more than anything else. Step 4. Survival kit. Every worker needs a survival kit. Survival kit level 1. This position gets the most exposure. Grab one when you need a sugar boost. Always keep a few treats you can offer your co-workers. Survival kit level 2. These are for hunger pangs before and after a meal. You'll need them when you take a coffee break with your office buddies. Survival kit level 3. Trash talking your boss with your soulmate. Did you survive in the workplace? Office romance? Be careful. Even the photocopier knows all the gossip.
최선을 다한 넌 받아들이겠지만 서툴렀던 난 아직도 기적을 꿈꾼다.
We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day. We're New Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, November 27th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Park Ki-eun.
Thank you for having me, and happy first snow day here in Korea.
Happy first snow day here in Korea. And Julian Kim.
Happy first day of winter.
Happy first day of winter. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to start with our keyword news of the day. Today's keyword matches our weather today, which is 붕어빵, the popular fish-shaped bread. It's that time of the year again when people start hunting for their favorite winter snacks like 붕어빵. One domestic lifestyle platform, Jong-un, has been creating a winter snack map every year since 2020, helping users locate stalls selling treats like 붕어빵, fish cake skewers, hottdog pancakes, and grilled sweet potatoes in their neighborhood. Now this year, they've launched a map dedicated exclusively to 붕어빵. According to the platform, most of the spots previously listed on their winter snack map were 붕어빵 sellers, and searches for 붕어빵 on their app significantly outweighed other snacks, so they decided to focus solely on this beloved treat. So Julian, do you also enjoy 붕어빵, and are there any other winter snacks that you like to enjoy during this time of the year?
Yeah, I love 붕어빵, but I didn't know there was actually a custard? Yeah, custard cream version. So I'm excited to try it this winter. But other than that, I love hottdog. I love like the olding, the fish cake skewers. But any excuse to eat these snacks, I love them.
So it seems like you're a big fan of Korean winter snacks.
Yes.
Now, what about you, Gyun? Are you also a big fan of these treats too?
Definitely. I remember eating all these snacks when I first came to Korea, and like especially obviously during winter. There's also like 군고구마, which is baked sweet potato, and like what Julian mentioned, there's hot dog as well. But there's also 군bam, baked chestnuts. But I heard that there's one actually down the street from Arirang. You told me, right, before the show?
Yeah, there's a 붕어빵 stall if you ever have a chance to come
to Arirang. There's one just down the street. But I think this app is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Not just to Koreans who, actually feel like having these snacks, because it's not as easy to find them in the streets as nowadays compared to before. And I think I remember having a lot of these fish cake skewers back in the day. But even like nowadays, they still have it, but not so much these 붕어빵 stores. But I think with these apps, maybe if they make it into an English version, that could be very helpful for foreigners who actually want to taste these classic, traditional, old school winter snacks. So, hey, maybe this could be a good suggestion for Jong-un to come up with an English version.
Come up with a multilingual service. And I think we talked about winter snacks last year on NewsGen, but as Q mentioned, we're seeing a growing popularity of Korean winter snacks among internationals. So for those who are interested, users of the app can contribute by adding, editing, or deleting 붕어빵 sellers, as well as sharing details like operating hours, prices, and personal reviews. And this 붕어빵 map will be available on the platform until late March or early April next year. And that was our keyword news for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today, we're going to explore the latest trends in Korean culture. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
Previously on NewsGen, we explored how young people in Korea are joining running crews and property viewing crews. Why do you think these group activities are becoming so popular among the younger generation?
Right, so we talked about this on NewsGen several weeks ago, but running crews have been around for a while. It's still trending, and we're seeing an increasing number of them. But something new called property viewing crews are booming here in Korea as well. So why do you think there's a growing interest and demand for this new type of group or crew?
Right, before I delve deeper into your question, there is a strong sentiment of collectivism and sense of belonging here in Korea, embedded in the Korean culture. Even though people in their 20s and 30s, are more known for their independence and individualism, I think it's in our blood and DNA that cannot really change over generations. So going back to your question to the property viewing crew or 임장 crew in Korea, it's a community that mainly consists of people in their 20s and 30s that gather on weekend mornings looking for housing properties on the market. The main reason for the growing interest in this particular crew is that young people feel discouraged helpless, and even they even have a lack of knowledge when it comes to investing in real estate because of its, obviously soaring prices. So hence, viewing houses with someone around your age in a similar situation can give you more courage and gain a better understanding of the housing market by sharing your thoughts and experiences with the crew members. And they also see this type of activity as something very productive to do, especially on a weekend, because I think most of these crew members in their 20s and 30s, they are obviously workers, mostly in the office.
Right.
And they realize that just with their salary, it's almost impossible to
buy a house,
buy their own house, like an apartment here in Seoul. So I think because they have this shared kind of same sentiment, they can actually, talk about different things about their future and investment, which is in Korea. Buying a house is also about, just living there, but it's also a part of investment,
right?
Especially apartments here in Seoul. So I think they have that kind of thought as well, like thinking of it as a part of investment.
And just looking at these houses with your peers kind of motivates you that I should work harder and someday I could buy a house. So talking about these property viewing crews, are called Imjang crews here in Korea. Julian, can you tell us a bit more about how these crews actually work or operate?
Yeah, so if you search many of these major social media platforms here in Korea, you'll find open chat rooms or posts recruiting people to join these real estate scouting trips. These often include descriptions for people ages 20 to 39, and it says something like, meet twice a month on weekend mornings, or for real estate beginners. So a lot of millennials and Gen Zers form small groups and schedule time to visit these properties. And so they search for neighborhoods that they're interested in. So basically how it works is that if you are interested in joining this Imjang crew, you first search online for a specific neighborhood and you join that open chat room. And from there, a small group and a real estate agent will get together and tour some property together, and afterwards they all get together at a cafe or a restaurant, discuss what they liked about the house, what they didn't like about the house, as well as real estate, investment value, and more.
I think this will definitely be a great opportunity for young people to actually study real estate and take a look firsthand. Now, going back to our main discussion, and from working out to exploring real estate, young people in Korea seem to prefer doing things together as a group or a crew, and this seems to contrast with the widely held belief that millennials and Gen Zs are sort of more individualistic when compared to the previous generations. So, Hyun, what do you think is driving this crew doing it together culture among our generation?
Like I said before, it's always been rooted in our culture. And I think people in general feel a sense of rapport, trust, and intimacy when they do things in a group together with a common goal or mindset. Obviously, you feel less lonely in a world that seems more connected than ever. And this is very contradictory, but I say this because studies have shown people who spend longer screen time are more likely to become depressed than those who actually don't. And sadly, we live in a world where we're always, stuck to our smartphones, laptops, or TV screen, and it's something that we cannot avoid in today's society. Anyway, so long before the running crew came into light, small study groups were a very common thing here in Korea. It started with English, studying English in small groups in cafes. They will post recruits on social media saying, hey, if you want to study together, come join us. There'll be one, like a foreign teacher who's willing to teach you English. And they would also gather together to prepare for an English exam, like TOEIC, which is a very, very common English exam taken here in Korea among Koreans. So obviously being in a space with people with the same, passion, aspiration, and dream, the environment kind of creates a sense of encouragement, hope for all those people. So as much as the millennials, like you said, and Gen Zs, they like to live in a more individualistic lifestyle, I think these traits kind of draw them back to these kind of crew cultures, becoming a real driving force them to kind of live a better, more active life. And what's that term called? Katsing, living a life like a god,
Right, and I think this is also because during COVID-19, these young people, they really didn't have a chance to make in-person contacts. They didn't have a chance to meet other people offline. So this could be one of the reasons why we're seeing more young people gather together and doing things as a group. And Julian, are there any other reasons that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I feel like there's always going to be people that enjoy doing their hobbies alone. I personally enjoy working out alone. But that being said, some someone like me also sees the value of being part of a community to share hobbies or activities with. So a lot of MZers, not just in Korea, but all across the world, they crave social connection that just isn't virtual. So many people have found that joining a social club to be the easiest way to connect with people. And even in an age where individualism is on the rise, human nature drive us to seek genuine social connections. And so social clubs provide a place for people, even those who enjoy solitude, to meet more like-minded people. And I think anyone would enjoy being in part of some kind of crew, and crew culture has served as a great way to meet others.
And you kind of mentioned this in your answer, but I also want to ask you, are we seeing a similar trend overseas, for example, in the United States where you've lived for a long time? And this crew culture has drawn quite a lot of attention here in Korea, as we're seeing running crews running around the Hangang River parks a lot these days. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on this culture as well?
Yeah, so there are similar trends in the US. So like you mentioned, after COVID-19 restrictions were eased, many people were eager to get out of the house and just socialize with people in person. And I have found that in urban cities like LA and New York City, running clubs have been increasing in popularity. Now, many people don't feel safe running alone, so running clubs allow them to meet together with people and to feel safer running in their own neighborhoods. It's also a great way for many to build camaraderie with people in the same city too. And there even is a joke that people use running clubs as an alternative to dating apps too. But yeah, so I am not surprised that social clubs are becoming popular amongst young people in Korea too. The pandemic showed us how loneliness can affect everyone, especially those who don't really, I guess, have a sense of community. But what did surprise me though is the Incheon crew, or like the real estate scattering crew in Korea. Maybe it's just because I don't have like a strong enough of an interest in real estate, but I found it fascinating to learn more about this crew. And I think it's exciting to see people like trying to build a community with like, if they're interested in real estate. And I think it's important to celebrate something like that.
Right, so until now we focused on the good sides of this crew culture, for example, giving young people a sense of encouragement, motivation, helping them build or expand their social circle. But as with any trend, there are always two sides to the story. Some criticisms have been raised about this crew culture. So Ki-yoon, could you first tell us about some concerns or complaints towards this Imjang crew culture?
Sure. To begin, real estate agents have raised concerns that these crew members don't actually have immediate intentions of purchasing any kind of houses, but are just coming in regularly, requesting them to show houses that are on sale. Even though it's their part of job to show them around, they don't really end up with any concrete results, like in terms of sales, which really correlates most to their incentive-based salary. So I fully understand that side of the story. And furthermore, owners of the houses that have listed their property for rent or sale actually need to clean up the house to, I guess, appeal more to the, the future or owners. But only to realize that these people are only there for the experience or just to gain a bit more knowledge about the real estate side of things without any intention of buying. So I do understand both sides, but the crew members are saying, hey, they have every right to request to look for these houses. And they're also saying, we could be potential buyers of these houses in the future, not so much now. And for them to kind of complain and say, hey, we don't want you here because you're not going to buy the house anyway, I think it's a little discouraging at the same time. But at the end of the day, you never know. They could grow up, save up more money,
and buy that actual house.
That actual house, and benefit everyone. But I think it's great to see, like what Julian said, having this kind of communal sense, this common kind of shared interest that really helps them motivate to, I guess, save up more to eventually buy a house to help them live a better life in the future.
I see. Then what about running crews, Julian?
Yeah, so with running crews, people have found them to be very disruptive due to large size and noise. And I guess with any large group activity, there are cases where they cause trouble to others. Seoul has even banned running crews along popular running routes, like for example, like the Han River Park. And so while running crews promote some like social interaction and fitness, they also disrupt the public spaces that they inhabit. So I think it's important to have conversations about how to balance the enjoyment of these activities and also help other people like enjoying the public spaces to feel safe and comfortable doing so.
Right, so remaining respectful towards non-members who are not part of this cruise as well. So until now, we've taken a look at both the benefits and drawbacks of this crew culture, and we also asked our viewers about their opinions on this issue. Benny D97 says, for me, joining a social group like a book club or a music club is a great way to connect with people. You get to find out what others are into, whether it's books, K-pop, or other genres of music. Cappuccino 126, social crews are nice when you want to meet people who share your interests, but one downside is that conflicts between group members can sometimes mess up the whole vibe. JKY says there are definitely times when doing things alone can feel a little awkward or limiting, and that's where interest groups really come in handy. Still, it's super important to be mindful about who you meet in these groups and what you do with them. Right, so now to better understand why young people are so drawn to these crews, we're going to invite a millennial who's part of a running club to our talks after a short break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Matthew Ambrose, a millennial from Switzerland. Matthew previously joined our interview on running club fever here in Korea. Welcome back to the show, Matthew.
Great to be back.
Great to have you back. So Matthew, I want first to ask you, we all know that you are part of a running club, but could you please tell us what kind of other clubs or social groups you've participated in until now?
Yeah, so I think when I first came to Korea, one of the things I wanted to do was to learn Korean. So what better way than to join a language exchange group, which I did. And a little bit later on, as I changed careers from being an English teacher to going into news, I then actually also started to join a couple of clubs that did networking parties, and basically you would meet people from all kinds of industries. It was kind of a very much open book. Foreigners meet Koreans and talk about business opportunities that they could potentially engage with together.
Matt, so you've obviously have a lot of experience in different types of crews and groups and social gatherings, but do you think there are any drawbacks and of course the main benefits of joining these type of crews?
Well, I mean, it does sometimes create a bit of a reliance. When you are normally accustomed to doing things alone, you do have a sense of independence, but it can get lonely. Now, the same is true on the other extreme side of things. If you start to draw this dependency on having to go to these groups, you suddenly realize that maybe you're not as independent anymore, and getting stuff done by yourself is not as easy. And there are times when you're going to have to be, standalone.
So did you find anything unique about Korean crew culture? And also, what steps can be taken to ensure that this crew culture remains respectful and doesn't cause inconvenience to harm others too?
I think the Korean crew culture noticeability, like the real distinction was in the running crews, because I was the only foreigner there. So that's where I really felt it the most. They are a lot stricter than Western clubs. Western clubs are a lot more laissez-faire. They will just let you come in and out and do whatever it is and join or leave whenever. The Korean running club culture, they would often have a bit of a system, an attendance system, and you would often get allowed into the group if you attended 6 times in a row and you didn't miss one. And then, if you missed enough, then you would be cast out of the group. You would still be allowed to join them, but you wouldn't have like certain group benefits anymore. And then, there were people who were always trying to compete with each other for like leadership positions within the crew. And I just, to me as an outsider, it just seemed rather peculiar.
I see. All right, Matthew, thank you so much for sharing your experience today.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so ending off, I would like to ask this question to our panelists. What are some key points that we should keep in mind when participating in a crew or a social gathering? Because I think the last thing we want to do is disrupting or causing harm to those who are not part of the group, right?
No, you're right. Not causing harm to those who are not part of the group is also an important factor. But once you join these kind of crew, like groups, it's really important to be mindful of what just Matthew just talked about. You know, they'll have each group will have their own kind of rules and regulations that you need to keep, and then your first intentions of joining this crew might change over time because of these strict rules that you have to keep. Otherwise, they can kick you out, and like they will all have like different leaders, and obviously not all leaders are great leaders that you want to follow. So before you actually join crews, I'm sure, like just what Julian just mentioned before, there are different kind of different sorts of groups as well that have different kind of obviously rule sets and regulations. So read beforehand, and instead of like falling too deep into it, I think what just Matthew said was I think people become too dependent on these groups and these members as well, and you kind of lose the core I guess mission why you actually joined in the first place. So if you want to make a decision, let's say if you want to buy a house, I mean, instead of you coming up with your own decision, you would end up asking everyone. And then that would just not really help you in the end, because at the end of the day, it's your money that you want to you'll be spending. So I think maintaining that independence before becoming too reliant on these members, as long as you're mindful of that, and being kind of be independent at the same time, like being able to say no to these gatherings, because I'm sure these gatherings, they might have different motivations deep inside. So being mindful and being actually knowing when to say no and to differentiate your main purpose from when you actually first join could be a bit more beneficial in getting the most out of these crew, I guess, groups.
Right, so doing your research and also maintaining your opinion and voicing on your opinion. What about you, Julian?
Yeah, so just going off of what Ki-hoon said, I think it's very important to be mindful of your environment. Don't be too loud, don't be too disruptive too. But yeah, it's important to keep and maintain these groups a safe place for people to meet. And as long as you come in with like open-mindedness, enthusiasm, and practice basic social etiquette, I'm sure you're gonna have a great time joining these crews.
And putting yourself in the shoes of others as well. And that's all we have for today, but Newsden will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Park Ki-hoon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And Julian Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
저희가 매일매일 자동차를 타고